All right, welcome in everybody. We are at Bonfire number 7. We're talking about education innovation. I know you're all going to have lots of amazing thoughts on this because you have gone through the education system, which might look very different in your different countries. We are lucky to be joined tonight by a co-founder of CU doing his second Bonfire ever, Josh Thompson. How you doing tonight?
Just glad I was invited back after doing my first one. So thank you.
That's always a good sign when you get invited back for number 2. All right, so we're going to let Josh kick us off with a little icebreaker for you all.
Oh, I thought you said I wasn't leading any slides.
Well,
but
you're doing this one.
All right, cool. I'm super interested in this one. I think we all have a story. A lot of books outside of school impacted our life. So take a minute. What's your favorite book that was not introduced to you in school? Throw your answers in.
Thousand Splendid Suns. I don't know that book. Oh, Where the Crawdads Sing. That's a good one.
Which Harry Potter?
Virginia Woolf. Oh, Metamorphosis. That's a great one.
The deep one.
Percy Jackson.
The Song of Achilles. I love that one. I don't know if I take the series. Like, you can't just say Harry Potter or Percy Jackson series. Got to be more specific for me.
Hate You Give, Overstory. Brothers Karamazov. That's a hard read. That's a hard read.
Wow.
Another Crime and Punishment. I didn't read that till I was like 30.
Some serious ones. Graphic novels count as well, if anyone wants to throw them in there.
Yeah. Notes from the Underground, Light in August. Ooh.
Love Just Mercy.
Boundless. I don't know the Boundless.
The Alchemist. Yes.
Yeah, Hunger Games. I was forced to read Jane Austen in school, and I got to say, I didn't love it as much in school. So I think it might have been better outside of school.
I feel like a lot of the books that did have an impact on me, they actually were assigned to me in school. I just didn't read them then. I read them after the assignment.
Right, and then you thought there was probably a reason why they
probably aligned with the syllabus somewhere.
Yeah. Reverie. All right, 2 more. Seems like 100 Years of Solitude is a popular choice. Put that on my list. All right, looks like everybody's weighed in. If you still want to weigh in, feel free to go ahead if you're still thinking about it. Ooh, A Wrinkle in Time, good one. So one
Nick,
of the
do
reasons.
you have an answer before we move on?
Oh, do I have an answer?
Yeah.
Outside of school, probably Bonfire, the Vanities. That was the first Tom Wolfe book I ever read. Like I think I'm like my early 20s, and I could never imagine reading that kind of book in school. What about you?
Yeah, as you know, I was on my way and was a college basketball player. Hoop Dreams was the book, and then the documentary that really impacted me.
That's a good one. All right. So one of the reasons we wanted to ask this question is because we want you to start thinking about education, not just what happens day to day in school with you, but all the other ways that you can become educated and learn. And that's why we're going to be talking about education innovation tonight. So let's get right to the lesson. Normally I do this like kind of long history of whatever we're talking about going back to the ancient times. I'm not going to do that tonight because education actually hasn't had that much innovation from the ancient times and until like the 1900s. It doesn't really look that different. It's kind of a teacher student relationship has been at the core of that. I mean, that's for good reason. That is proven to work over millennia. But tonight we're going to talk about some new ways and some new innovations. The one historical element I did want to talk to you about was outside of school, because the other place where most learning has happened throughout history are in libraries. There was one particular set of libraries, though, that I wanted us to look at that were very important in shaping innovation. And they were called Carnegie libraries. So in this 40-year period between about 1880 and 1919, Andrew Carnegie, famous American businessman, founder of Carnegie Steel Company, he funded the construction of more than 1,500 public libraries across the US. So pretty big deal. 1,500 libraries all over the United States, paid for by this philanthropist, business person, Andrew Carnegie. Before this happened, it was really expensive to acquire books. Most people couldn't afford them, and thus they couldn't get access to this kind of knowledge. Having public libraries reduced this cost for millions of people. You no longer had to buy all these books to get knowledge. You could walk into this building, pick up a book, and just start reading about whatever you wanted. Now, one really cool study that came out this year has shown that the cities that received these libraries actually had more innovation take place than cities that did not. And you're probably wondering, like, well, how do you measure innovation? Well, the authors did it by looking at the number of patents that came out of each city that received a library and compared it to the number of patents to cities that applied for a Carnegie library but didn't receive one. So if they had done this just comparing cities who had them with cities who didn't, it wouldn't work. It'd be apples to oranges, because there might have been something different about the character of those cities. But the fact that they compared cities that received a library to cities that didn't receive it but wanted one was super important. The authors here show that access to scientific knowledge and opportunities to interact with fellow people in these libraries were contributing factors to sparking the innovation. So the bottom line here was that libraries actually have been proven to spark innovation. I can tell you're thinking deeply about this, Josh. What are you thinking?
No, I had a question for you. You may not know, but like, was there selection criteria from Andrew Carnegie of like where and why they were building these libraries?
That's a great question. They did have selection criteria. It was about like size of the cities, budgets, amount of people there. So yes, there were, but they weren't. There was not like a contest for it where like you had to prove that your city was more innovative than other cities. And the fact there were 1,500 of them shows there's obviously not 1,500 big cities in the US. Kind of shows that they were kind of randomly dispersed, and so it was ripe for this kind of comparison. It's a good question. All right, so let's talk about these libraries. What lessons can we learn from this study? Does it give us any insight into what might spark innovation in schools or on online learning programs, to know that libraries had sparked this kind of innovation before? And it's all about access to the knowledge and then being close to people who are like-minded and are in those libraries. Anything we can take from that all the way back in the 1900s to our present time and how we learn today. Allison says she went to tour CMU, which I think is Carnegie Mellon. 5 large libraries across the campus. Samuel, incentivized self-taught activities.
Yeah.
Interesting. Giving space and resources.
Yeah. I was going to ask, right? Like, is there any correlation like with open park spaces or just like open creative spaces that could be like analogous with like I guess often I think like the idea of books around you as opposed to like actually consuming them sometimes is like the spark of innovation. But yeah.
Right. You might not necessarily be reading them all, but there's something like maybe special that can happen with them there.
And yeah, important, interesting call out, Benjamin.
Yeah, that is a good call out. These were not designed necessarily for his own workers who were paid low salaries. Cultivation of community for people to grow and thrive together. Fantastic response. Self-learning, collaboration.
Nick, if you dive further, is there like a historical tracking of like how many of those patents got put into like actual use and like deployed, or is it?
That's a good question. I'm not sure how far they tracked those. I think they were just measuring how many patents were successfully filed at the U.S. Patent Office. But you're right. I mean, some might have been just like a crank on a clock or something that wasn't that really that innovative, but they still granted a patent too.
Mm-hmm.
Access to education is the root of all innovation, like that.
Love that, Claire. Yep, community centers, whatever that looks like in your community.
Yeah, that's a great point about evolving beyond books into technological competency. Like, yeah. What if there was an initiative to build 500 like tech centers with the latest, fastest computers for kids to mess around on and to build stuff with? Like, that could be a new form of this. These are all great answers. Okay, keep thinking about those. Keep writing them in there. We're going to move ahead to some more modern innovations, but hopefully the Carnegie libraries are something that you now know about, proven to have worked, and maybe someday we could replicate them with stuff beyond books. All right, here's a modern case study in education innovation from the last 20 years. Khan Academy. If you have not heard of Khan Academy before, that's okay. I suspect many of you have, because many people use it to study for tests, exams, etc. It was started all the way back in 2004. It started as an offline, no tech company, essentially, when the founder, this guy here, Sal Khan, just began tutoring his cousins, nieces, and nephews who needed help with their math homework. He was really good at math, so he decided, hey, I'm going to start tutoring you all because you're struggling. I'm sure that happens all around the country. So in this sense, no different than anyone else. Now, as he got more requests for help, he realized he was spending a lot of time doing this. He was still working another job. So he thought it'd be more efficient if he recorded his lessons and then sent them to the people that were studying under him, his pupils. It was at the same time that this was happening, in like the 2005, 2006 range, that YouTube was becoming really popular. You all don't remember this because you were, maybe 5 years old, but YouTube wasn't always what it is today. It wasn't always this easy access to educational videos. A lot of the time, it was just people uploading pretty silly stuff, right? Just like cat videos, baby videos, not a lot of like educational content on there. And Sal Khan thought, oh, this is just a good place for me to upload those videos so it's easier for sharing. I don't have to email them to everybody. Josh, you remember those days, early YouTube days?
Yes, I do. Again, why I was confused like 4 years ago when one of our co-founders, Gary Sheng, was like, the future's on YouTube. I was like, I have not revisited that in quite some time, but didn't think it was there, but it is.
And so before Sal Khan knows it, thousands of people are watching his lessons on YouTube. This is becoming such a big deal that he decides to leave his job and focus on this tutoring business full time. And he decides to turn it into a nonprofit called Khan Academy.
I've never recognized how every fellowship, like we have so many fellows who are a fan of Saul. We got to get him in to talk, like
I know,
or do something.
We really do.
I know we have access to him, so yeah, we should definitely do that.
100%. Yeah, he's changed so many lives. So fast forward to today, over 70 million people have used it, judging by your responses. Obviously, many of you are in that bucket, and his lessons have been viewed almost 2 billion times. Insane amount of people have watched this stuff. They have expanded from just math. They have over 8,000 lessons in almost any topic you could want to learn about. So if you want to self-teach yourself about something, Khan Academy is a great place, all the way from elementary math, all the way up to the SATs, GREs, GMATs, LSAT, any kind of test you want to study for, any kind of subject you want to learn, great place to start. You could argue that it's been the greatest education innovation in the last 100 years. You all can debate that if you want, but it's pretty hard to say.
Just throwing up content on a platform. That's been the greatest innovation.
Well,
it seems that way. I mean, that's what the fellows keep telling us over and over again, right?
Right. I mean, maybe that's too hot of a take. I don't know. Maybe, yeah. You all tell me. Is that crazy to say that it's the greatest education innovation of the last 100 years? Yeah, I see some people agree with you, Josh. They're just saying, like, what's the innovation part of it? You're just throwing up content on YouTube. Back at the time, it was pretty unique. Yeah, making quality education. Like, what if how many kids are going to school today with a terrible math teacher, right? That doesn't care about their learning whatsoever. They don't have enough time to deal with hundreds of students. But then you go on to Khan Academy, and it's like this guy's teaching you one-to-one. And if you don't get it, you can always rewind. And there's all these practice tests.
Yeah, that's super cool.
That piece is cool. All right, as you're pondering that, a few more questions. As we've been kind of talking about this already, but why do you think it's been so successful? And are there any ways it could still be improved? I'm sure you all could come up with ways to improve it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm looking forward to these answers, but Nick, you and I talk always about this. Like, I wasn't calling it out, Khan Academy, for not being innovative, but if you don't think it's that innovative, then what is? Or how would you change it? How would you tweak it?
Right. Look, because I think what they're responding to is that it might have been innovative in 2008, right? But in 2022, is it still it's still as relevant? Is it still innovative? Easy to use, free, good and short videos on specific subjects. Yeah. But we have it's incredibly impersonal.
Add more subjects. Yep.
Interesting. Yeah. So the dynamic questions. Yeah. So maybe for like advanced levels, it's not that great.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've read that they expanded their subject material to SAT prep, which I know is super important, right, on a college track. But I wonder, are they doing anything like on the fringes to say, like, we know this isn't, quote, like SAT prep, but it's like very cool to be well-rounded as a human. Interesting comment about centralization as opposed to decentralization. Like that call out.
Yeah.
The badges. Yeah.
Yeah, that centralization, decentralization is fascinating, because that could be a criticism of this. To my point about the math teacher, isn't it dangerous if every kid in the country is learning math from this one guy? Like, are we too reliant on that then?
Mm-hmm.
Just as a provocation.
Does he do all the lessons?
He does all the math ones. Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a replica of you that you won't, like, you're on every bonfire. I get it. I see how these trends go
on a much larger scale.
I see how these go. Got it.
Yeah, we're sending this recording to him afterwards.
Why not? Seriously,
that's why we're doing this.
Stuff like that in the past.
All right, so it can be improved by adding more questions for practice for several courses. I completed the math course myself and encountered myself getting the same question again. Yeah, I've noticed that too when I used it. I admittedly haven't used it in like 5 years, but it probably has changed. Ooh, yeah. There's some good criticisms here.
Yeah. What was that thing that we studied for in law school? What is it?
LSAT?
Logic, like the logic games and critical thinking things. Yeah. Yeah, more personal support. I mean, so
Right.
necessary for everything in life: a coach, a mentor, a peer.
I apologize if somebody said this already and maybe I just missed it, Josh. Um, there's no community aspect of it. It's all solo, right? It's dependent on
Yep.
just like you sitting at your computer for whatever, however long it takes and learning this stuff. And I think we've, in our theory of change, we really believe that learning happens much better as a community and not as an individual.
Right.
Oh, they have a community forum too. Cool. All right, fantastic. Thank you for all of those responses. We could talk about this all night. It's a great case study. If you still are looking for a topic to do one of your case briefs on, Khan Academy, awesome case study to do. And then you can get out all of these criticisms in there, and it would make for a great paper, and maybe the beginning of your own company. All right, so we're going to do one more modern case study in education innovation. And this is very different than Khan Academy. It is not an online platform. It is an actual school dealing face-to-face with real human beings. And it is a school in Newark, New Jersey called St. Benedict's Prep. And we are lucky that Josh just happens to be an alum of it. Before Josh talks about it, I'm just going to give you some facts and background about the school. First is that it's a college prep school in Newark, New Jersey. It's been around since 1868. Since 1973, the headmaster has been an amazing man named Father Edwin Leahy, who himself was a graduate of the school. What makes it so special, though? We're going to talk about that for the next 5 minutes or so, and then we're going to give you some time to ask questions about it. But Josh, tell us like the top 3 things about Benedict's that make it a special school and prime for replication by others. Or actually not prime, because it's going to be hard to replicate it.
Yeah, cut me off where I riff too much in here. Some important things to know as well. Father Edwin did not get admitted into St. Benedict's when he applied, but he didn't take no for an answer, and he just started showing up. And eventually, they accepted that side of things. And I'm not sure if you followed, right? We've moved a lot more away from, we're going to be changing some of the language about a college prep school, but rather a preparatory school for life and character. Cool. So that's been a big thing. But what makes it super unique in my mind, which was a huge catalyst of what inspires me about Civics Unplugged, is it's youth-led. So yes, there's a headmaster by title, but he has one vote. There's a democratically elected every year governing body of students, and the students get to vote on literally how long the school day is, extracurriculars that are taught outside of the core content, how long the school year is, if it's trimesters, semesters, all of these things. And just like a lot of my answer with Civics Unplugged, when people just say like, what's the identity of CU? Yes, we have like a North Star, not like we have a North Star that we're building towards, but the makeup and kind of like the personality changes with every fellowship, with every newly elected steering committee within Civics Unplugged. So super special, and as well as the mantra from the elected leaders of the school and Father Edwin, which is do not bring me problems, bring us solutions. So a super amazing case study.
So there's only so much you can learn about this by talking about it. You really do have to see how special it is. The best way to do it is obviously to visit the school. If you don't live near the school, that's okay. Luckily enough, the news magazine 60 Minutes, like very, very famous 60 Minutes. If you haven't heard of it, if you don't live in the US, it's one of our lasting news programs that's been on since like the 1960s. They did a story on Benedict's, and that's rare. They don't do many stories on high schools in the US. And so that was a really, really special moment. And it's fantastic to watch. What behind the scenes with that, Josh, how did that play out with 60 Minutes coming there?
Yeah, so a couple things I also want to call out, which is that if we had that power, we just vote to have 0 hours of class. Yeah, that's happened a couple of times. So like actually it happened when I was there. We took an entire semester, quote, off from classroom time, and every student got placed in a a mentorship, mentee mentorship role, or at a job site of what they were interested in. So we literally, like, our school was just home base, and then we went out, like left the classroom every day for a quarter of the year, which is awesome. And then I see that the chaotic equals good. If you watch the 60-minute piece, well, the interviewer says, Father Edwin, what you're describing sounds like chaos. What do you have to say? And he goes, yeah, it is. It's fun, right? So it's we totally embraced the chaos. But yeah, they were after us, Nick, for better part of a decade, to try to tell our story. But our view was like we were doing just fine without like anyone else knowing about our story. It was our community. It's what we did. And then the senior group leadership voted. The kids said, this is the time we actually want to start scaling parts of our curriculum. So the kids at that point really wanted to do partnerships with schools in Israel, which they wanted to get like the word out further. That helped do so. Now we have a really long-standing, well, now almost half a decade standing relationship with a couple schools in Israel where we share content in curriculum. So.
Yeah, I mean, not many schools have had books written about it, movies, 60 minutes pieces. So lots of amazing stuff. Oh, one thing that's one of my favorite things. Can you share what they do with all the freshmen when they get on campus and how they have to kind of earn their way into the school?
Yeah, for sure. Is it scalable is something that we're asked every day. And it's also a big, again, I can only speak for myself in this, a huge motivation of why I show up at Civics Unplugged every single day. What I do believe is scalable is community. Is scalable the boarding facilities and on-site therapists and on-site food that is there at St. Benedict's. That's really hard, but the idea of community, I think, is scalable. But yeah, so the freshmen, it's a rite of passage that you as a group, you are broken down into group systems. You hike a really significant part of the Appalachian Trail. So you're outdoors with your brothers, your sisters, your peers for multiple days at a time. And if there's anything, I've never found anything better at building camaraderie where you're stuck in the rain, it's the middle of the night, you hear stuff in the bushes that you've never heard in your life. And all of a sudden you want to build quick shelter and create an assembly line, get dry, take care of someone who's injured. So yeah, the quote rite of passage is the freshman overnight and then hiking the Appalachian Trail. So
it's awesome. So take a minute and think about what are some innovative characteristics about your own schools. Is there anything that you're like really, really proud of that happens at your school? And then on the other side, if there's not, think about ways that there could be improved. Are there any innovations that you'd like to see at your school? Like maybe more student voice, maybe more student leadership. No dress code. I should specify. Just tell me if that like exists at your school or if it's an improvement at your school.
Yeah, important distinction, right?
Oh, your school has no dress code. Yeah, that's it. Benedict's does have a dress code. Like there's a uniform, correct?
You must wear a hoodie. Pretty hard. Wow, taken over by teachers. Weird.
Oh, yeah, really good teacher-student relationships.
Yeah, scalability. Call out that it's a small school.
Yeah.
Extracurricular, yeah, for sure. We stopped I don't know why I use extracurricular. We stopped calling it that at Benedict's because it made it seem like it was different or like, not core. I have to figure out what we started naming it. Huge ass library. There you go.
STEM school. These are coming so fast, but thank you for putting them down.
Block schedule. I'm always curious too, Nick, right? Like I was obviously a student once, and always before Benedict always said, listen to the students more. I've seen a lot of young folks over the years, like just start doing something without permission. Like, so by the time that they're saying, listen to us, they're actually showing something, right? Like, look at what we've been doing, as opposed to like just talking about it.
Yeah, it can be honestly easier to get something off the ground that way than having to wait for like a committee to approve it and budget. Oh, you like this one? School promoting more on alternative routes of education rather than pressuring on colleges.
Very
That's
cool.
something that most schools do a poor job of.
Yeah. Once again, back to St. Benedict's, when you watch the 60-minute piece, we have a 100% graduation rate, and I think 99% of our young people enrolling in college. And Father Edwin said, yeah, we're trying to get that number down. What we do is try to give 100% of our kids the opportunity to get into college, but it's, other people have other career paths, or at least, a couple of years in between.
Cool. Keep those answers coming as I give you some takeaways from tonight. So first, libraries are really underappreciated and underutilized. We kind of take them for granted now, but it's proven that they can spark innovation. And maybe there's some implications for new age libraries that maybe don't contain books, contain some form of technology where people can get together and actually innovate. Second, Khan Academy, whether you think it's the best innovation in the last 100 years, it is indisputable. It ushered in a new era of how people learn. It's now possible to teach yourself almost anything. That doesn't mean it's always preferable, though. Like we said, learning as a community can be much more effective, like we are doing tonight. And then third, St. Benedict's is an example of education innovation that lasts. This is not like a fad. This has been going on for 60 years now. It has shown that it's possible to do in urban education what many schools have failed to do. It displays the power of letting the kids lead and not doing for them what they can do for themselves. And I hope if you research the school, you'll see the influence that St. Benedict's had on us when we were designing CU. All of the co-founders went and visited before. I've been a few times. Josh obviously went there. All right, last rapid response of the night. Where do you see education heading in the next 10 years? Do you think it's going to be more of the same, or do you think they're going to be important innovations?
I just want to call out that Newark, New Jersey is actually one of the most economically and environmentally challenged cities in America.
More digital based. Online learning will become more common. Education getting more expensive. Yes, it's especially higher ed. It's always getting more expensive. Virtual learning, small group based, free classes.
Yeah, I see the technology being integrated. I've had a lot of conversations recently with like schools who have just been founded upon never using tech, right? Like a lot of outdoor schools and whatnot, but they're coming around because they like we have an obligation, right, to start to try to marry the two.
Turn more business, more focus on STEM. Yeah, Allison makes a great point. It's going to take a lot to break the standard kind of assembly line education model that we've had since the early 1900s. That's not going away anytime soon, probably.
Yeah, I wonder, is there still the movement going on? Did you have the movement, Nick, when you were a student? I remember we started one of just like trying to get at least 90% of our peers to just ignore the SAT, stop paying it attention and just like do like a walkout of it. I'm not sure if that still exists.
No, well, I mean, so many colleges don't require it.
Don't even require anymore. Yeah.
I think it's
I guess like even just like all standardized testing of just kind of like, no. How to be human.
Nice.
How to be more human. Montessori is a very cool model of education.
Yeah, that would make for another great case study if you're looking for one.
Yeah.
definitely check out Montessori. All right. If you have any more questions or comments, put them in the Zoom Q&A. We're going to answer questions in a minute. I just want to get through some announcements for you. Reminder, case studies, they are due at the end of the fellowship. So the last week of the fellowship in mid-April. You need to do 2 to complete the fellowship. And you can do them on any of the case studies that we've looked at during these bonfires. So tonight, if you want to do one on Carnegie Libraries, if you want to do one on Khan Academy, if you want to do it on St. Benedict's or Montessori or another kind of school that I haven't even heard about, you can do it on those. Or you can go venture off and do a case study on something else. You have plenty of options. The instructions are right here. I'll always leave them in here on the slides. They're also in the syllabus. A lot of events this week. On Wednesday, we have a trek on financial health. So if you're interested in financial literacy, financial health, check that out. Then on Thursday, Nick Varney is back with his second session of the system based on systems thinking. If you attended the first one, you definitely want to go to this one. It builds on it. If you didn't attend the first one, you can still come to this session and I'll give a recap in the beginning. So it's open to everybody. Later that night on Thursday is a community town hall. And then on Friday is a Minecraft game night. You can see all of these events on the events tab in Discord. Some readings for you to supplement what we learned about tonight. Here is the study on Carnegie Libraries linked for you. Second is an article about education innovation on where we're heading in the 2020s. And then third is the 60 minutes piece on Benedict's. So all there for you. I'm going to send out these slides later tonight. All these are also in the syllabus too, if you want to access them before. So the only announcement is that the International Working Group is open for all to join. If you're interested in doing that, you can DM Angelina or Carl. Those are their handles on Discord. And with that, let's take some questions. Put them in the Q&A.
I like, in conclusion, school really misses a lot of important stuff. Not going to disagree with that.
All right, Josh, do you think the Benedict's model would work for all schools or only some, like the ability for students to choose?
Ooh, y'all tell me. Y'all tell me. Everyone that we know who has embraced that model went through some early years of growing pains because the adults, nothing against them, said like they're ready to embrace this model, but yet they only took certain suggestions and opened it up to certain decisions. It's until each school and each system or each network actually embraced the full chaos of like everyone being at the same table and involved in like the kids at Benedict's are involved in giving raises to teachers, to hiring teachers, to everything, right? So yes, if everyone, it's like one of those few times that I will say that there's an idea of one size fits all, which is inclusivity, which is having an equal share and an equal vote. I think that's the world that we're all striving and hope that works for everyone.
How does Father Ed ensure that when he's like hiring staff members that they share the same mental models, that they're on the same page with this stuff? He just knows the right questions.
They run through like, it's like an incubation. You're never just like hired and then you have a job. You come in for the first couple months and teach multiple different subjects that you're passionate about, that you're trained in, and the elected leaders evaluate and say if it's a culture fit.
Interesting. Cool.
Something that's kind of cool too is about 70% of the staff is former students. So it's pretty easy to be a culture fit. So
love it. All right. How common is funding when it comes to education, research, and innovation? How can we make people realize that it's important? So in terms of government funding into this stuff, I think that there is quite a lot. I just don't know if it goes into the right places. Like, I know it also differs country to country, but in the U.S. there are lots of dollars out there for education research.
It typically, yes, it's very common. Yes, there's a ton available, and it tends to go to a very select and same group over and over and over again.
Right. It's probably going to the, yeah, same think tank, same organizations that aren't necessarily going to disrupt the status quo.
And I guess there's intentionality to that, right?
Right. What's the international working group? I think somebody answered it in the Bonfire chat, but it's just a working group of any fellows. It doesn't necessarily have to be just international fellows that want to make the fellowship experience more accessible to our international fellows.
I think that this next question, Nick, I'm very curious your answer. The way I think about it, it's a really good, strong question. I just challenge all of us, right? I think you all do a really good job, right? Just look at the fringes, like really focus on the fringes, and like that's where innovation's happening. And if more of us focus on the fringes, that's when it becomes more mainstream. Kind of give us all a call to action. Like what exists right now that people like, think about how many things like YouTube, right? How many people would have scoffed 10 years ago that could be an educational tool, right? It's like, no, play around with it, live in that fringe, and any platform can be used for cool things.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're looking at the history of how tech and education kind of intersect, tech does always seem to start out with what seems like frivolous pursuits, like the cat videos and stuff. And so you could make the argument that maybe like VR, crypto, Web3 stuff, like some of it might seem frivolous at first, but the people that are able to harness that and use it to advance education and spread education, they're probably going to be wildly successful, just kind of like Sal Khan was. And we don't know who's going to be the first to really do that. I'm sure people are working on it, but maybe it'll be one of you all that does. That would be fantastic, because you're
in that last statement, Nick. I mean, that's for real, right? What I wish the fellows had more insight into, and I think we just need to do a better job at it, is we're inundated with inbound from massive educational organizations, massive school districts, massive think tanks, like really looking to us of like, what are the kids proposing? What are they building? What should we be thinking about, right? And it's just like, sometimes it can sound like a throwaway statement, like maybe it could be one of you. Like, actually, there's a lot of groups actually counting on us to start coming up with some of these case studies.
100%. All right, it is 8:15. Last call if there are any questions. All right, we're going to end it there. Thank you, Josh. Thanks, everybody. Watch the 60 Minutes piece, read the articles, do the case studies. Can't wait to read them. Have an awesome night. See you next week.
Peace, y'all.